Hello, welcome to week 20. Sounds like some kind of landmark. Week 20 of my run through the top 20 artists of all time. And as you can see, to celebrate week 20, I've invested in a new lighting system. So you can see my face a bit better. And, get a nice bit of glare off my glasses. I'm really professional. Anyway, week 20, it's my favourite band from the Madchester era. With apologies to Stone Roses, Happy Mondays and the Inspired Carpets and my friend Owen, who'll be disgusted at me. There's only one band from the Manchester scene in my top 100, and that is the Charlatans. Actually, it was part of Manchester's scene, but after copious research, it turns out that not only did they not form in Manchester, they didn't even form in nearby Northwich, Cheshire, which is where I thought they'd originally come from. No, they actually formed in the West Midlands in 1988. The founder member was Martin Blunt, and they originally aspired to be part of the Birmingham and Dudley scene, which had recently spawned Dexys Midnight Runners. Their sound was formed by garage rock, and 60s soul. Rob Collins' Hammond organ was an especially important element. But those observant viewers who know a little bit about the Charlatans already will note that I have not yet mentioned their most famous member, Tim Burgess. Tim Burgess wasn't in the group originally. He took over as vocalist in 1989. He was originally from Salford, but now he lived in Cheshire, Northwich, Cheshire. And somehow, he must be a very persuasive man, rather than he move down to Dudley, he persuaded the entire band to go up north in search of fortune. Perhaps the appeal of Northwich was its proximity to Manchester, which was the in place at the time. The Manchester scene, typified by the aforementioned Stone Roses and Happy Mondays, was taking off, and the soulful dance groove of the Charlatans fitted right in. They were ready to start releasing records in 1990, and their first single, Indian Road, was a moderate indie hit and attracted major label interest. But their second single, Hit Pay Dirt, the only one I know, it was a bona fide top 10 hit. At the time, the Charlatans never quite made into the first division of Manchester bands, but I would argue, those who know me know that I quite often do argue, I would argue they were always the most musical, and certainly the most musical of the Manchester bands, and certainly hindsight has proven them the longest lasting. The follow-up single then made a respectable 12, and the album made number 1, an achievement for debut. Although after that, it seemed that for a while they'd peaked too soon. Mark Collins, no relation to Rob Collins, joined the band in 1991, becoming the third to join of the most long-standing lineup. Subsequent early releases didn't match the success of the debut. The second album only made number 21 in 1992, had the bubble burst. Nonetheless, they were well enough known that they had to change their official name to Charlatans UK, as there had been a 60s US group called the Charlatans, and for a while they were known as Charlatans UK on Spotify too, but that is no longer necessary. I don't know why. The earlier American band seems to be the one who's disappeared. It's a mystery where they've disappeared to, called the Twilight Zone. Rob Collins, the keyboard player, disgraced himself in 1992 for being the getaway driver for the armed robbery of an off-licence. He claimed he had no full knowledge and got charged with the lesser offence of assisting an offender after an offence. nonetheless, he served 4 months in prison and returned to the band. The band trod water for a year or two, moderately successful albums and non-album singles. Up to Our Hips in 1994 was the highlight of his period, making number 8. But their 4th album in 1995 was a proper breakthrough. It was their second number 1 album, but this time they were ready for more long-standing success. It had 4 top 40 singles on the album, and just when you're thinking things over, made number 12. Then tragedy struck again when Rob Collins was killed in a road accident during the recording of a 5th album, Telling Stories, in 1997. It was a dark hour, but they continued, and the finished album kept Collins' contributions on where they could, but they brought in a temporary replacement to play keyboard on other tracks. The album remains their commercial high water. It was another number 1. It went platinum and spawned 3 top 10 singles, the most successful singles of their career. But the album I love most, and the main reason the Charlatans make my top 100, was the next album, Us and Us Only. It boasted the debut of Tony Rogers on keyboards, and he is still in the band today. To my ears, what made it special was it went beyond the band's usual indie sound. There was no such recognised genre back then, but today parts of the album might almost be described as Americana. Americana from Madchester. This was their best album, but they have done good records throughout, still do. We have new ideas at regular intervals ever since, and all 13 of their studio albums have charted in the top 40 of the UK chart. 3 of them, the 3 earlier ones which I mentioned, being number 1s. They've had 22 top 40 singles and 4 top 10 singles. Tragedy was never far away from the band, unfortunately though. And in 2010, a member called John Brooks collapsed on stage in America. He had a brain tumour. First, they thought they'd treated it successfully, and he did return to the band briefly, but the tumour just flared up again, and he died in 2013, aged just 44. They've never replaced him. They use succession of session men and guest artists from other bands when they tour or make records. Tim Burgess, the lead singer, is probably more famous than the band itself though these days. He's become something of a minor celebrity. He's very prominent on social media. He's written a number of books, and he's always ready to be a talking head whenever a chat show or the TV news need a rock star with an opinion. He's always a man with an opinion. But the Charlatans do remain a going concern, even if the gaps between records are becoming longer and longer, and even if they are no longer on such regular terms with the singles charts. But they are a big live draw, both in their own right and supporting the likes of the Stones, the Who and Oasis. Charlatans, I salute you.